Public Prosecutions as appointed by the President this afternoon. Well, to tell us a little bit more about Shalillah Batohi and the task ahead, I'm now joined by someone who knows her quite well as a former spokesperson of the NPA Makhosini Nkosi. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So the reaction generally so far has been quite positive. It seems that most people agree that maybe this was the right choice.
If I were to be given the responsibility to appoint a National Director of Public Prosecutions, I would have made the same decision. And this is why I would have done that. Firstly, let's look at the challenges that the country is facing. We have a slowing economic growth, which is not consistent with what we see in the continent, which means that, the past few years or past several years, there was a weakening of the state and mismanagement of the economy. And those things were done so that people could loot, so that there could be this rampant corruption. Now, this is something that a National Director of Public Prosecutions can do something about, to ensure that people who are facing or who are accused of corruption and state capture and all those things are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But also there's another challenge that we're facing as a country. And I was disappointed that the President did not talk about it. I was disappointed that Shalillah Batohi did not talk about it. That we have a serious problem of a low-intensity civil war that's being waged by men against women in this country. Gender-based violence, femicide. A lot of women who die at the hands of their intimate partners. Now, I think that it would help to have a woman as the National Director of Public Prosecutions. She is best qualified to guide that war against, the attacks that we see against women. But also, what I like about Shalillah Batohi, going back to the first point that I spoke about corruption and all that, she has been in The Hague for the past few years. She has international experience. And I think when it comes to issues of mutual legal assistance, extraditions and all those things, I think she should be very, very useful in that regard. But also, she has experience. She's been a Director of Public Prosecutions in KwaZulu-Natal, which means you are like the NDPP for that particular province. So that talks to experience, that talks to, being able to take decisions. I think it was a very good appointment.
So what was she like when you worked together? Take us back.
Well, I liked her very much, and I think she liked me too. She's a very friendly person when the situation calls for that, but a very stern and tough taskmaster. Very, very respected and reputable jurist. I think that we are not going to be having questions of an NPA that is not doing what it's supposed to do, or a National Director of Public Prosecutions who's afraid to take decisions.
What kind of things do you think she's likely to change? Is she going to change the structure? Is she going to make appointments? What kind of things do you think we might see coming from her desk?
Look, the appointments, at least at Deputy National Director level, and I think directors of public prosecutions, I would have to look at the NPA Act. Those appointments are made by the President. So she can recommend to the President as to how the NPA should be structured, but the appointments are made by the President. But I think, as with every leader, when they take over, there are changes that they will have to effect. Otherwise, why were they appointed? So there are things that she has pointed out as problems that I think she would have to sort out. I think that there will be some sort of change management initiatives. I think that there will be employee engagement, stakeholder engagement, because we come back from an NPA. Believe it or not, the first NPA head was appointed in 1998 to serve a 10-year non-renewable contract. We've had 5, not one has finished their term. And I am hoping that she would be the first National Director of Public Prosecutions to finish a 10-year term. I'll tell you why I'm saying that. All the national directors that we've had, from Bulelani Ngcuka, Vusi Pikoli, Menzi Simelane, Mxolisi Nxasane, and Sean Abrahams.
Mkotodi Mche.
Mkotodi Mche was acting. Yeah. Now, either they left because of something that had to do with Jacob Zuma or the corruption charges, or they were irregularly appointed, or courts have said that they were not supposed to be appointed they were appointed by Jacob Zuma. So I'm saying the former president is a factor in many of the national directors, whether by appointment or when they leave. Now, I don't think that he's going to be that much of a factor going forward, because we have a president who doesn't have at least any corruption or criminal charges pending or being investigated or being suspected of. So, and also that when he made the appointment, he did something that he was not obligated under the law to do. There's no obligation in the Constitution and in the NPA Act that there should be some selection process. The president can appoint a person who's fit and proper, who qualifies for the job. But I think the decision to open the process has opened it up to the public for us to participate. Because now, if the appointment was done the previous way, a complete person that we don't know, new person that we don't know anything about, would have been dumped on us. But now, because we followed the process, and many people believed that Shalillah Batohi was the best candidate. So I think really I'm very happy about this, and I think it augurs well for the stability of the NPA and the stability of the criminal justice system going forward.
How does she win back the trust of the public? What does she need to do almost immediately so that we get a sense that, you know, someone's in charge and that we're safe?
You know, the issues that I referred to earlier that I think are critical are the issues that bother people on the ground. You know, she is not appointed, and I think it's important to stress this point, that when people talk about Shalillah Batohi, they talk about the NPA as if her task is to stabilize the NPA and to make everybody happy at the NPA. The NPA exists so that it can prosecute on our behalf. So it does the work for us. So if the NPA does the things that the public expects them to do to make sure that people are prosecuted to the full extent of the law without fear, favor or prejudice. If all those things are done, if she sticks to the Constitution, if the Constitution is her guiding principles and the laws of this country are the guiding principles, if she does not allow herself to be influenced by politicians, which I doubt it will happen, knowing her the way I do, I doubt that would happen. If all those things don't happen, I think people will have confidence in the NPA. But also, communication and public relations becomes very important. I'm not saying that because that's what I do, but I think it's important that you manage perceptions, you manage how people see the NPA, so the NPA must communicate, it must be proactive, and all those things. I think she'll be able to do that. When I worked with her, we got along very well. I was doing communication. I think that was mainly because she appreciated the importance of the work we were doing.
And I would imagine as well that it works in her favor that she is from inside, and that she doesn't have to work as hard to, I suppose, gather the troops around her.
That could be good and bad at the same time. It's good because it's somebody that people know. She's not a new person. They know her persona, things she likes and things she doesn't like. But also it could be bad in that, as an institution, there could be some resistance, maybe because people know her or because of some baggage about certain things. But all those things are sorted out by good communication and public relations for internal stakeholders and external stakeholders at the NPA.
All right. So, bottom line, great appointment, and we have great hopes for her.
I think this is a very good appointment. I think that the president did very well, the way he conducted himself, and the fact that, I've heard people talk about that the president used the Minister of Energy to appoint the National Director, and why not the Minister of Justice? I think the president made the right decision, because the National Director of Public Prosecutions is supposed to be independent of political influence. Now, if you have the Minister of Justice appointing the National Director of Public Prosecutions, or being involved in the selection process, it could send the message that the National Director works for the Minister.
Right.
So if you give a minister that she is not going to be having anything to do with going forward, then it is you are able to manage. So the president was doing something that was not catered for in the Constitution or in the NPA Act. He did something which I think is very positive, that should be commended. And I think Parliament should look at formalizing this process and making sure that it's even more open than it is. But that said, I think the president took a very good decision, and I think he should be congratulated for it.
All right, Makhosini Nkosi, thanks very much indeed. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your insights.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that was a former spokesperson of the National Prosecuting Authority who has worked with the new NDPP, Shalillah Batohi, in the past, and he's given the appointment his thumbs up. Palesa?